Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Riches. We got David Perez here, who prides himself on telling everybody, stop paying taxes, stop giving money away, start putting money for yourselves. Today, my voice is a little off. I sound like RFK Jr., so it's not an endorsement or anything like that, but that's kind of how I feel. But the main thing is that David is talking about real-life strategies to help people lower tax liabilities. He ran an incredibly successful accounting firm, and now he's positioned his business to just talk to people who are making significant money and build wealth, which is something that we love doing, building wealth, sustaining wealth, and growing wealth. David, thanks so much for coming on. It's great to see you. Give us a 2-minute background where you came from, where you are today, and then we got a lot of questions. As people always ask you, it's how and what and where and how am I doing this?
Hey, by the way, thank you guys. Thank you so much. So my name is David A. Perez. I am a tax strategist. I guess I would call myself a recovering tax preparer. I've been in the tax industry for 16 years, primarily started in tax preparation, helping people file their returns. Over the course of my career, we prepared over 50,000 tax returns. And, preparing a return, it seemed like a very complex thing when I started. And then as I kind of grew into this industry, I kind of realized that it's just basically reporting history. And when I encountered my first real tax challenge personally, which was in 2015, I realized there was a difference between planning and preparing. And so I made it my mission personally to find ways to mitigate or eliminate my tax liability. And I did that for several years. And in 2020, when the world changed and COVID kind of made us all change, I realized that I had developed a very unique skill set. I had managed a multi-million-dollar tax practice. I'd managed literally hundreds of people, grown and scaled that to multiple 7 figures. And I had really solved a lot of my own problems in the tax world. So when the pandemic hit, I started to meet different types of clients all over the country, and they were asking me different questions, and a lot of them related to helping to avoid taxes. And I didn't really know at the time that I had such a deep skill set, and it was kind of exposed. And so it kind of became a passion of mine, helping high achievers, high producers who are making money and who are tired of overpaying in taxes, or maybe they're not tired of it, they just don't know they are, uncover the ways to avoid paying taxes legally.
Nobody likes to pay taxes, that's for sure.
No, man, nobody does. I've never met a person who did. Actually, there are some people. Actually, let me point that out. I believe that there are accountants out there that like paying taxes, and they consider them extensions of the IRS. And I call them blind patriots, because their thoughts are, well, the world is going to run on tax dollars, and it's your right as an American to pay taxes. And you're supposed to just pay your fair share, man, because how would the roads get built and the bridges and the, all the bullshit when, I call them blind patriots, because they're just blindly go into the, into this tax system and say, well, that's just the way it is. And I don't believe that. I think patriotism is building a business and supporting our economy through stimulating job growth, investments, helping people, giving to charities, to our churches. I think that's how you become a real patriot.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing when you can actually control your dollars instead of somebody else controlling it for you. The government is this bottomless pit of spending. It's an easy place to do it, but it's a bottomless pit of spending. If the government was so efficient at spending and so good at putting money out there, then no nonprofits would ever need to exist. No, there wouldn't be anybody else picking up the pieces, because the government would be taking care of everything. So I think if we could pay less taxes, and if you have disposable income, give more money to charity, that's a huge win. So how are you actually doing it? Because that's going to be a lot of the questions that people are asking. What are the basic ways that people should be looking at to start thinking about their taxes and looking at their accountants and having that question of going, you know what, maybe this isn't the right person for me, or maybe I am overpaying and they didn't even realize it. What are those audit questions that they should be asking for themselves?
Well, when I think about, number one, to know if I have the right person in my corner, I'm looking to find if the person I'm working with, credentials are really overrated today, in my opinion. Going to somebody just because they have some large credential list is not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who's ambitious, somebody who has the desire to have more, just like me. So if I go to an accountant, a CPA, or tax professional, I'm looking to see if they have the same challenges either that I'm going to have, if they've already experienced them, or they are on the same pursuit as me, because then they have a kind of a an obligation to solve the problem for themselves, which means they have the skills and the knowledge to solve them for me. And that's the number one thing I'm looking at. I'm looking at the guy who's preparing my taxes, or gal. Are they pursuing more? Do they have a large practice? Or are they chained behind a desk? Do they make investments outside of, a 401k? Are they ambitious in their desires to have things that I would pursue, like real estate? I mean, that's the number one thing I'm looking for. And if you're not connecting with that person and you feel like they're just somebody you give paperwork to and they're always contentious about, well, we need to make sure that, it's done properly. So that's kind of questionable. And I'm like, we're not trying to break the law, but you want somebody who's going to find a way versus say there is no way. So when you go to that person, they should be somebody who's ambitious. They should be problem solvers. They should be, when you bring them an idea, because a lot of ideas are out there, right? You could just go on any social media or any media platform and you'll find an idea. If you take that idea to somebody who's your accountant today and you're like, hey, they said I could pay my kids. They're like, that is ridiculous. We should never do that. If they say anything other than, hey, this is good, we need to figure this out, you need to run from them. Because that is a person who isn't ambitious, who doesn't have desires to help you and really doesn't care about whether you pay taxes or not.
No, I mean, that's the key. We find a lot of successful clients relate to us because we're on that ambitious train and we align our values over with them. We've actually rechanged our entire branding to just, and our podcast is called Resilient Riches, because it's people who are looking to build wealth and have also overcome it. They've gone through these obstacles. They're looking to build wealth, which is exactly like what we have. So we went through a very difficult financial times and we built wealth, and we're never going to go back, and we're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's really what our clients want. And whenever we talk to them, they go, okay, well, what's the next stage? I go, well, the next stage is for you to do A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. Not the next stage is let's date a course, and hopefully that you'll make the same amount last year, and we'll put money into this retirement plan, and you'll be good, hopefully, for later. The goal is to constantly push and find the next thing, and to find people that push you, because really your wealth is going to be directly correlated with the 5 people you surround yourself the most with. You're talking to your accountant at least, 10 times a year. You're talking to them for 8-9 hours a year, something like that. That's a lot of time.
At least. Well, by the way, that'd be if you're working with the right person. Most people will talk with their accountant or CPA maybe once or twice a year, and it's probably tied to a deadline or sorts, never really tied to the actual, planning process. That's what I've noticed the most. Majority of people will go through that and they'll just hear, just bring me the documents or let me see your bookkeeping, or, that's usually what happens. So what I would say, though, by the way, Yair, is one of the interesting things about what you do, and I love what you're doing, because, I think there's a lot of people who are very naive, and let's call them ignorant. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, they're just unknowing, right? Ignorance is not knowing. And I think there are a lot of people who believe that the tax strategy game, how to avoid paying taxes, is either expensing to zero, like finding ways to get to zero by expensing the crap out of their, out of their profit and loss, or that there's some magical fairy dust I can sprinkle on there and it'll magically make taxes disappear because that's what they're paying me for. But the real path is tax-favored investments. And that's what you guys handle, tax-favored investments. And I think that's so misunderstood, because it's not about avoiding taxes. It's about building wealth. And the way you build wealth is you don't pay taxes, but you don't get to keep the money, because, you get to keep possession of it, but you don't get to hold on to it. It's going to either go to Uncle Sam or it's going to go to it could be retirement, just an investment vehicle. I think there's this misconception out there, especially with TikTok and Instagram, that, it's just you put these little strategies and you just keep all your money and you go to Vegas. Like, bullshit. Like, that's how it works. You got to put it in something that makes you money and gets you the tax deduction. And that's very, very misunderstood today. And so what you guys are doing is fantastic. I love your strategies. I love what you talk about, what you guys are promoting. It's very insightful to what people need to hear today. It's not tax strategy. It's an investment strategy.
It's interesting because before you mentioned that, I was thinking along the same lines. Most people just don't know. People just aren't exposed to it. They just don't have an idea. They just don't know what's available and what they should be doing. And, we talk to many, many people over time, and they just say, well, how come never anybody ever spoke to me about this before? How come my accountant didn't say this to me? People just don't know what's available, and when they don't know, they get scared and nervous about it.
Well, I think there's a fear in the world. The fear is making mistakes. Okay, and I think that there are more people out there today with more money than ever who are afraid of making a mistake, and that mistake is really losing money. I identified it as the rich trap. It's where an individual has finally reached a level of success that they've never seen before. And no one in their family's ever seen it before either, because they're the first generation who's figured this out. And they come to the conclusion that they would rather ignore an investment strategy and pursue their business growth, right? Because if they ignored the investment strategy, it's not painful because they could lose money. So their investment strategy either becomes their business or they just focus on their business and leave money in the bank. And then what happens is it becomes tax time. And, if you don't do anything with your money and you make money, it gets taxed. And that's that fear of loss causes people to get taxed. It's really just a fear of loss and fear of making bad moves because, they know that if they are truly the first person who's made it in their family depends on them, and they don't want to let them down. And that is a fear of today's world. I think many people are just afraid of making a bad move, and that's why they don't get these tax-favored investments in place, and that's why they pay taxes.
Yeah, there's 3 layers of tax that I find it, and people don't even realize. Everybody thinks it's all income tax. So then there's income tax, and then there's tax on your money, capital gains tax, and then if you have too much money, then there's an estate tax. So everybody tries to park all the money in real estate, borrow against it, but then they're not prepared for the estate tax. You have to manage your money generationally, or else there won't be any generational wealth because the government's going to come and take it.
No, I get it. 3 forms of tax. I've never held it put that way, Yair, but it's true. Also in real estate, there's real estate taxes, and then there's sales taxes, and so I think this misconception that we don't pay taxes is kind of bull. We do pay a lot of taxes, and especially in the state of Texas where I live, our real estate taxes are ridiculous. I think I pay like $100,000 a year in real estate taxes, just personally. In just real estate. I can't avoid those, by the way. I have tried. Trust me, I have gone to the hearings. I've gone to the courts. I've done it all, bro. You can't avoid them. So, I pay sales tax every day. We pay 8.25% in my city, and I'm sure where you guys live, it's probably 15% or something stupid.
Yeah, New York City.
Yeah.
New Jersey.
For anybody to say that we do not pay taxes, and that's just like rich people say this bullshit. No. We pay a lot of freaking taxes, including additional FICA and payroll taxes. Our business and our corporations will all pay some sort of franchise or state income tax. There's just endless forms of taxation. So what we're trying to do is just play the game. And those three that you mentioned are exactly right. Those are the ones we can play the most because those are the ones that get changed the most. Every administration comes in and says, hey, here's the new rule book, right? And the new rule book comes in and you've got to look at that new rule book and say, okay, I got to learn how to play this game. And that's what it is. I think there are people out there who get stuck in their ways, especially accountants. They want to help their clients, but they're overworked and underpaid. So they don't understand that there are ways to mitigate taxes. So they just default to this is the way it is. And we as investment advisors, as tax professionals, it's our obligation, our duty who have figured this out to spread the word, right? And to share with everybody, it's not about just paying taxes. And you're going to pay taxes the rest of your life, and you've got to think about all those 3, like you mentioned. And that was very well said.
Absolutely. So what would you do if we like to do these lightning rounds? Just a quick tip for somebody who's, let's say, a business owner making $500,000 a year that just they're just fed up. They finally made it. What would be a quick tip that you would give that person? You get this big paycheck. You just made $500. You're finally there. What would be the first tip that you would give him? Aside from obviously talk to an accountant, talk to a tax professional, talk to an investment advisor, what would be a tangible tip that you would tell that person to start doing and to start putting money away? Free advice for everybody. So we're not going to charge you. We're not your advisors. This I took from you. We're financial advisors, but we're not your financial advisors. So free tip that you would give. David, you go first. I'll go second. Dad, you're number 3 because my dad is.
Oh man,
He's going to get into insurance,
horrible.
so it's going to be a whole other thing.
That's horrible, bro. Like, I can't tell him to come talk to me. I can't tell him to shit. Well, first off, so to be very truthful, I'm very good at strategy, so I could give a tremendous amount of strategy here. But I would say to a person who, if this is the first big paycheck they've ever made, and this is something that they've earned, like it wasn't gifted and it wasn't won, okay? This is something to be treated with a lot of respect and the attention it deserves. My number one rule when you start making money, and this is my advice, and it is going to tie to me, but it's not to me. You need a board of advisors. You have to get people around you that are going to help you to not only manage your money, but make life decisions. When you start making money in business, the problem becomes is once you become successful, you think you know more than you really do. And you've got to surround yourself with good people. And that includes a tax advisor and a financial advisor and insurance people, all those things. I get it. I think it is a tax strategist, an attorney, a financial advisor, a doctor, a pastor, and your spouse. I believe those are your people. And I call it the board of directors. You need it. If I were making money, that'd be my first advice to someone because
and maybe not in that order. Maybe not in that order.
Well, yeah. The orders, you make the order, but I just know how I would see it because you need people in your life. You need those people. That's my advice.
So that's a great tip. It's surrounding yourself with the right people. My tip is going to be a little more financially tangible, but my tip will be if you just started making money and you never set a budget for yourself and you just lived a normal life and you wrote paycheck to paycheck, write down all of your expenses that you have had before you start spending new money. So immediately you make, let's say you make $500,000 and the year before that you made $100,000 or $200,000. Write down your expenses from the year before, so you put that down. So now you can actually start saving money because you realize you can live the exact same lifestyle as you had the year before and nothing will change, but now you have all this extra disposable income to start making the right strategies and the right investments. That would be my tip. Dad, you're next.
Hey, man, that was good.
So I'll have my last tip. After you've done what David has suggested and what Yair has suggested, what I would say is with the extra money, you want to diversify. You want to put it into a lot of different pockets so that you're going to have a place to go. If you need money, you need smart money, you need to have a place to go because you know that when one thing goes down, the other one goes up. So you want to make sure you've got some insurance. Of course, I'm going to throw that in there, but you've got the investments, you've got some real estate, you've got some tax shelters, whatever David suggests on the tax side, but I think you want to be a little bit everywhere.
That's good.
That's great. It's great advice. David, you went through some challenges and obviously obstacles in your life that allows you to constantly push and constantly be more and more successful. In your personal life, what would you say was that defining moment that allowed you to become resilient, and which is resilient riches, and which is why we get along? What was that defining moment in your life that allowed you to be that success story and really such an advocate for people to build their own futures?
So it really started, the biggest defining moment of my life, I was born to a single mother. She was 17 years old. I had a kid, kid having a kid, born to two parents, Hispanic of descent. So both brown. My biological dad sees me at birth, takes off, says, man, this white kid isn't mine. And I was labeled disabled at birth because I had they labeled it a disability. It's called albinism. So I'm sensitive to light and I have no pigment in my skin, but I'm full Hispanic. So you wouldn't know that. Now, all my life, I was raised very well. And I don't mean because I was raised with money. I mean, like everybody took care of me. I rode the little school bus. I was in the special ed class. My mom and dad kind of coddled me. And it was actually my grandparents who took me in at 1 year old because my mom couldn't handle me as a disabled child. But anyways, I had a great life. And I didn't really understand what a great life was. I never had it wasn't luxurious things. It wasn't things. It was love. And it was more of a, I felt the love, but I really didn't know what that meant until I was about 16 years old. At 16 years old, I come home from school and there's two men sitting in suits in the living room. And they asked me to sit down with my mom and dad. And they asked me some questions about my medical history. Now, I had no big medical history, so I didn't even know what they were asking me. It was more like about my hard and all these things. And I said, hey, what's going on here? And they said, we're putting life insurance on you. And then I said, oh, okay. So I went along with it. I went to my bedroom and I said, why would they want life insurance on me at 16 years old? What the hell does this all mean? So later that afternoon, I asked my mom, hey, Mom, why do I need this life insurance? Like, I don't understand. I'm not dying, am I? And she says, no, you're not dying. She says, me and your dad, which are my grandparents, we're a little older and we know that one day somebody's going to have to take care of you. And when they do, we want to make sure that they have life insurance to take care of you so they can, they'll get something for taking care of you, kind of like paying them off. And I was floored about it because I had never in my life ever felt like I was a dependent and I needed somebody to take care of me. I'd never felt that. I never felt like I was less than. I never felt like I didn't have the capacity to take care of myself for the rest of my life. But my mom was validating that that's how they believed and they perceived me. And so when that happened, it was like an epiphany to me or a change moment. And I said, you know what? I am never going to allow anybody to take care of me. I'm going to be an independent person. I'm going to thrive and I'm going to grow. I'm going to develop and I'm going to build and I'm going to do something big with my life. And it was a defining moment for me. And of course, obviously that couldn't happen immediately at 16 years old. But I said, when I'm able to do this, I'm going to do this. And at 18 years old is really when it started for me. I went into business. I did a bunch of things. But everything happened from that one day. And that was the defining resilience for me.
That's an amazing story. So anybody who wants to have a life like David, buy life insurance on your kids. Well, we're happy. My dad is happy to sell it for you. Do not worry about it. But David, that's really deep. And thank you so much for opening up about that. If you were to have a value that would label you and you put that in one word, what would that be? So if you took all the values and out there and you put, and I think you already spoke about it, but what would be that one value that would define you?
Independence. I mean, that's the one value I value above all things. I've always strived and fought to be independent, to never have to rely on anybody to take care of me, or to be truthful, to never rely on anyone to say that what I couldn't or couldn't do, or, I really see that in all areas of my life, guys. Like, it's truth, like in my health or in my money, my finances, in my business. I don't want to rely on a handout and I don't want to rely on somebody helping me. I want to be able to do it myself. And of course, I'm not against collaboration. I'm not against partnerships. I'm not against working with people. I just don't want to be a dependent on it. I want to be able to build my own stuff. Independence.
Yeah, I had independence in my top values. One of them was independence. The Klymans don't like to be told what to do.
There you go, man. Hey, by the way,
that's a big part.
I could use one more word to describe that for you guys. It's called control.
That's fine. Yep, 100%.
That's what you.
And there's no reason not to when you.
My mother did not like to be told what to do, and she gave that to all her offspring.
Hey, control and independence, man. You just got to have them both. I think in a world that's trying to get us to be controlled, in a world that's designed to keep us a dependent, it's more important to be independent and to have control than ever before.
Yeah. And there's so many ways that you could do that, and there's so many ways that you could take advantage. But I think it all stems, and what I've really picked up from this podcast, I think it stems a lot from fear of losing, and that fear that you built something and you can't lose it. So you don't want to take advantage. You don't want to look for other things. You don't want to think differently than what you're constantly thinking. David, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people find you? I know you have an amazing books. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more and get in touch with your team?
So you can find me at davidaperez.com with an A, or I am David A. Perez on any social media handle, even YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, anywhere you want to look for me. And you get my book on Amazon. Building Your Own Economy is the book I reference. Well, I don't even think I referenced it, but that's my brand, Building Your Own Economy. It's about taking full control over everything in your life and being an independent person. That's the concept behind the book. That's why it's funny how you said it. So I really appreciate you guys. By the way, you guys are doing fantastic work. If you're helping people put the right investments in place and you're sharing with them that there is strategies and structures that they can take advantage of in a given year to offset their taxes, you're helping so many people. I'm on a mission, by the way. I'm on a mission to help 5 million people save $50 billion in taxes. And I know I can do it. I think I can do that in less than 20 years, and probably less than 10. With your help, I'm sure I could do it faster. So if you guys want to join in on that mission, I'd love to have you.
Thank you so much, David. We'd love to be a part of it. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate all that you're doing. You're really educating, and I love that you give so much advice out for free and so much content out for people that most people are keeping to themselves. You're not scared to do it, and you're not scared to give. It's just it's a mission, and the money comes after the mission. So it's really amazing. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Great to meet you. River is it?
Which river?
Is the Ohio River?
Which river?
Which river? Like, what? Is the Ohio River? I'm not so sure about it. He says, well, what about the hostages? Hostages? I don't get into that part. I mean, these people, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And when asked, bad. What does intifada mean? And the guy said, oh, someone just gave me the sign. I don't really know what intifada means, but let's globalize it.
That's global. Yeah, that really makes it makes a lot of sense. So, Raquel, what are you saying to people that have not spoken up, and what should be the narrative of the Israeli people, and